Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Joel Elston here. Today is Thursday, March 15th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And Joel, we've been doing really good with the happy this week. Every single day's been a happy day, and I hope it's been a happy week for you too.
It has been. Incredible stuff is happening. I tend to enforce that in my life on a daily basis, so it continues. It's great. It's been a great week.
That's fantastic. That's really good. We're talking about something today, as we usually do, where I pick something up from your timeline. We're going to be talking about the question of, are we keeping our ships safe in our harbors? And it's one of those loaded questions, right? It's one of those questions like, well, it makes you think you're going one direction, but it's actually going another direction. But before we get to that, I have my cat in my lap, and I unfortunately just whacked her in the head as I was reaching for something. So I'll have to pet her a little bit more. But
well, so much for her happy week.
Yeah. No, she's happy as can be. She is curled up in my lap. She's purring away. She is just in heaven right now. So the whack to the head hardly even noticed that one. But,
okay, good.
I just wanted to alert everybody. Well, first of all, we like to share wins at the beginning of these shows. I want to alert everybody something that happened late yesterday that Wendy and I touched upon. We had our 30,000th play of LOA Today episodes since November 2016. So, I mean, it just continues to grow, and it's exciting.
That's amazing. 30,000. That's just a great number, and to watch it grow at the rate it's growing is amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. It's getting more and more fun every day too, which makes it even better because it just keeps improving every day. So that's my biggest win for the morning. That plus the fact that I have a cat in my lap, so that's a nice thing. But what's the big win in your week, or for today anyway?
Well, the way I look at it, first of all, I know it sounds so silly, but every morning I wake up is a massive win.
Yeah.
There really isn't a win that matters more than that. But to be given the opportunity of a new day, and that's how I wake up in the morning. Like, okay, here I am. I'm grateful for this, and no matter what's happened before, I have a chance for unlimited opportunities in each day that I've been given that opportunity. So it's just a reminder to me that, on a bigger scheme, there's a win every day. But on a more micro type, setting or review, I look at, just where I'm at in life and some of the stuff that I've business wise, I'm just doing incredibly well. I have as many patients as I want to have. We're working on our collaborative book with the coaches, and that's, you're sort of masterminding. And, with all of that, that's great. I'm working on my other books. I got a call the other day, I think 2 days ago. And one of my ultimate goals has been, and while I love what I'm doing, I would like to do more public speaking.
Oh.
The idea that I do public speaking, but I haven't marketed it at a level that, where you go out and you're doing 20 speeches a year and
right.
That becomes sort of your main source of income. So I do 2 or 3 a year, and they're they pay well, but I'm not up in that upper category where you're making the really big money. So I have actually was contacted by a gentleman that he runs several treatment centers out on the West Coast, and he actually I also do consulting and sort of working with people on motivational, trying to get their life back on track or their careers back on track. So he has this mini type conference that he is going to do for treatment professionals in California. And he said, look, I really need your perspective on addiction, the law of attraction. We gotta change this up. And so he's been talking to me about that. And so I'm thinking he's talking about a staff of 20 or 30, which I would certainly come out and do, which I do that stuff all the time. But he said, we're going to have 400 people at this conference, and I would like for you to be the keynote speaker.
Ooh.
And I'm like, wow. I mean, and financially it's a great opportunity. And so the idea that I put that out there and some of that stuff, so I call that a really big win this week.
Yeah.
And that's where I in a perfect world, if I were to create, which I'm doing, if I were to create the life that I would envision, where I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing on a daily basis, it isn't far off from where I'm at. But I would like to have our radio show go national, be on some type of XM radio, and have a show like we're doing, but do it on a national forum, and do public speaking, and continue to do my life coaching. And in that world, I'm doing the show, I'm doing my life coaching, I'm doing public speaking. So I'm already there. I just would like to take it to that next level, and I see it coming. I feel it coming, and so it's been a big week of wins. And when you accept your wins, all you can do is invite more wins into your life. So it's been a great week so far, as I said, and I'm excited that LOA today is the vision you set out to do several years ago, when it would be me and you talking, or even before I was involved. There might be 2 people listening for the entire thing. I mean, to have 30,000 listens is amazing.
It is. It really is amazing. That first show was Louise and I doing the first show, and we had a grand total of 0 listeners. So, you have to kind of start with a lot of faith. But, I mean, talk about law of attraction. You get this call pretty much out of the blue to come speak to 400 people. Wow, that's a great attraction manifestation.
It really is. And I talked to him before, and he knows me. And so the idea that, and then of course, what I have to do when it comes to like the financial side of that, public speaking, the public speaker gets paid quite a bit when you're talking to 400 people. So I have to, he said, well, how much is it going to be? I said, well, let me my initial reaction was to go low and not rock the boat or scare him. But at the same time, if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to lose money by doing it either. So I have to figure out, I'm talking to a couple of their speakers and seeing what a sort of a going middle of the road rate would be. And that's what I'm going to charge. But that's not even the big thing as much as it is, just the idea that part of it's coming along, and how it drags. And if you look at the big picture, how I look at all this, the more public speaking I do, the more my name gets out there, the more the law of attraction, LOA Today gets out there, our collaborative book gets out there, my other book gets. So it really is a part of this, that as we go forward, this is what we're going to do. This is the direction, and you can see it fill in the blanks, and it's sort of manifesting as we go along. And it's an incredible thing to be able to just have a front row seat and watch it.
And be a part of it, too. I mean, you're a part of it in a big, big way. That's fantastic. It's got to feel good.
It does. But when I say watch it, I mean, I can only do my part, but then to watch it all come together with surprising little effort on my part in reality to make this happen, it's like, wow, this is pretty good. So I love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It, of course, as usual, it ties directly in to the topic that we're talking about today, because you have a tendency to post a lot of interesting posts on Facebook, very often stuff that you've picked up elsewhere, but stuff that has little messages in it, to kind of give people a different perspective on what's going on in their lives, and the stuff that they're wrestling with. Maybe they don't need to wrestle with it so much, and so on and so forth. You came up with one really interesting one that said something to the effect of, and I'm going to be paraphrasing here because I don't have it in front of me, your ship is safe in the harbor, but that's not where ships were designed to be made for. They were designed to be out in the ocean. So the topic today is, are we keeping our ships safe in the harbor? And I have to say, the first thought, now this shows that I have not completely eliminated the negative self-talk from my mind, despite the fact that I'm doing the mirror work, and it is fading. There is no doubt about it. I am noticing it this morning. I noticed in a big way when I first woke up that the negative self-talk is a lot quieter than it was 24, 25 days ago when I first started doing the mirror work. So it's definitely working, but it isn't gone yet. That's my point. And one of the ways that I knew it wasn't gone is when I saw your post. The first thing I thought of was December 7th, 1941. Well, they kept all the ships in the harbor, and that didn't work too well. So, keeping your ship in the harbor is not necessarily the best point,
Yeah, I guess if we're going to go to 1941 for the reference, you're probably right. That's not the best quote, but I would like to think more in a general term with that. And what I challenge people to do, including myself. When you look at what we do at Law of Attraction, a lot of people are thinking, okay, look, I just got to be positive and great things are going to happen. And there's a lot to be said that that's accurate. However, the concept that we get out and we do things, we take chances, we move forward, we add, we go from one radio show a week to adding, to twice a day and then an additional, when we do all these things like you're doing, that's stepping out of your comfort zone. And I actually think of you often when that type of post, and I post it because your tendency, and I use this example in a very complimentary way with you. You are a plotter and a planner. We talk about that.
Oh, yes.
You want to study it for about 7 years, and then have somebody else study it and look at it. When you made this decision, you had this epiphany that you shared with me, and I don't know if you even remember saying it as an epiphany, but you basically you just launched this thing. You went way out of your comfort zone.
I did.
You didn't process. You didn't even really have a very stable format for us to do the show, but we jumped.
Right.
And that drastic action that you took your ship out of your safe harbor. And everybody's safe harbor is different. Salespeople who are effective aren't afraid of rejection. Salespeople who make the most money understand rejection's part of it. People who are successful in life understand failure is a piece of success. It's not instead of success. And so stepping out of your comfort zone or getting your ship out of your harbor is where life is. It's where, I'm sitting here at a point in life where, things are going really well. I have a good income. Life is going well. And I decide to adopt another child. That's taking the ship back out of the harbor.
Very much.
That's very much where life takes place. The harbor is a good place to recharge your battery, but it's not a place of growth. It's not. Your comfort zone is, we'll call the comfort zone the harbor. It is a place of retreat that I don't mind visiting, but I don't want to just be stuck in my comfort zone. That there's nothing taking place there. Comfort is about relaxation, and it's all necessary, but life is out on the sea. Life is the journey. The journey itself is, getting up. We get so preoccupied with a destination of, I can't wait till I can get to a point and retire, is what a lot of people feel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that I have few fears in life, but retiring and sitting around doing nothing is one of them.
I'm with you too.
That is not a goal of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a brain that needs to keep busy. I have a brain that likes to engage. I feel, one of the things that I discovered the other day is I did not know I had a step tracker on my phone. It's one of those things that is just built in.
Right.
And so I clicked on, because I was trying to delete some of the apps. I clicked on it and it said, you've exceeded your goals today. And I go, well, thank you. I didn't even know what it was talking about. I was very proud of that app telling me I exceeded my goals. And I didn't know exactly what goals it was talking about, but I was really pleased that I exceeded those goals. Well, apparently my goals are for walking 15,000 steps a day. And, I look back over the past month and I've exceeded 15,000 steps every day. And I'm I do weird things like this. I park as far away from any place that I'm at, so I walk in the parking lot. I always take the stairs. I never take an elevator. I believe that movement is the most positive thing you can do for your body in a healthy way. And on top of that, my normal exercise routine, but I like to walk. I have one of the most effective tools that I have found in working with my patients with anxiety while it's going on walking sessions. We go on walking sessions. They love that. Anxiety patients find great benefit because their initial reaction is, let's stay in the safe harbor of your office when we go out and we start walking, but they find the action of walking and talking and getting that fresh air and that sunshine or that cold air and that mist, whatever we're walking through. But we get up and we go walk. Well, I walk an average of 3 miles each session. And I feel good about that. So I've exceeded that goal. The safety or the comfortable place is to sit at my desk. That's where the safety is. Mm-hmm. And that's where the comfort is. But it's not where I find the most benefit. And that's sort of the point of that post to me. It is to accept and challenge ourselves to say we were given this life. We weren't given this life to sit in the harbor. And trust me, things are going to happen. There's things that you wish you were in the harbor for. I've had a lot of events happen in my life, as you know, that are not the best.
Right.
But my response to it has been, that's been part of this journey. And my vessel, I laughed the other day. I had gone to get my driver's license renewed, and it's been 10 years since the picture was taken on my driver's license. Well, when I got my driver's license, I probably looked 10 years younger than I was when I got it. Well, now I look my age. So you're probably, I probably aged 20 years since that has been taken. And the lady, I guess it was a reaction. She goes, "What happened to you?" And I laughed, and because my license picture was a really good picture. And I said, and my response was, life. A lot of life happened to me. And I'm not upset with that the fact that my body shows some wear and tear and I get a little gray hair and some wrinkles, that's okay. That shows that life has happened.
Yeah.
So it's about a perspective, and my vessel's been dinged up a little bit, but I still keep taking it out of the harbor. I don't want to just stay in the harbor.
The thing about taking the boat out of the harbor is it's almost like a backward way of looking at it, because it implies I'm looking back at the harbor even if I'm taking the boat out. But of course, we don't have to look that direction. We can also look out to sea, because that's where we're going. We're heading out to sea, and out to sea is where the adventures are. That's where life happens. Right. That's where life gets exciting.
Well, and that's where that statement it's a lot of these are cliches. And you mentioned earlier that a lot of the stuff that I share, I pick up from other people. Let me be clear. Everything I share, I pick up.
Oh, all of it. Oh, okay.
I have very original. Let me be very clear. Even my original posts are a combination of things I've learned from other people over the years.
Cool. So that's fine.
I'm really good at learning, but I don't necessarily claim to be the inventor. I just like to learn what's there. But when I view it, I don't even like to think there's a harbor. I don't even like the fact of having one harbor. I have enough faith that there's another harbor down the road when I need it, but I'm not staying close to this harbor. I'm just going out. This journey that we're on is not to be confused with the destination. And that's where we're almost always taught, let's work toward these things versus the journey is the destination. What we're doing is the process. It is what matters. It isn't where we're going. Where we are going is not relevant. The going is a tool. The destination is a tool that creates this journey, which is the actual experience of it. I was talking with a man the other day that he did all the years in the military, several years, however, like 25 years. And he never saw combat, and so we were just talking about, he's at a point, he's still a young man, and he's what he wants to do. And he said, I just need something that I'm fulfilled at. And, he has a nice income for the rest of his life, but he certainly doesn't want to stop living and being productive. So I said, well, tell me about what the military, and he kept talking about basic training. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, that was a long time ago. What about the military acts itself? And he'd talk a little bit about his job, but he kept going back to basic training. And he was describing basic training as very hard and very difficult. And he remembers the suffering and all the stuff that he went through. But as we were processing it, he's the one that came up with this. I said, I find it interesting. You keep reverting back to what your perception of the worst part of the military was, which you think is basic training. but you almost speak with it with the most fondness. It's the most accomplishment of your military career was basic training. And he said, well, I've never thought of it that way. And and so he looked at it. He goes, my most fulfilling part was the hardest part. I have the most feeling of accomplishment that I did lead my platoon in the most push-ups and I was a platoon leader. And this is, again, this happened years ago.
Right.
So he had a 25-year career, and that 8-week period of basic training is what was the most standout portion of that. And he reframed it to understand that really was what he cared about the most, the hardest part. We go through life and we look back on life and we go, I overcame that. I survived that. I thrived after that. The journey is our life. And when you can get up every day and face the journey with, I'm a survivor, I'm going to get through this. I'm not only going to get through it, I'm going to come out on the other side. It's a part of what makes me. When we lose a job or we don't have money or we don't have these situations that we start looking at it, oh, everything's terrible. It's a normal way to look at it. That's how we're taught to look at it. But I always look at what a new opportunity. And I've seen that happen in my life where I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you, having the life I have, if I didn't have these seemingly horrible events that in retrospect were events that got me to that next level. Losing a job that I didn't expect to lose is the greatest thing that happened. I would still be in that job. While I love the job, it's not near as exciting as what I'm doing now.
Yeah, yeah. And that's part of having what I would consider to be a true career. A career is not a single job. Your job over the years has transitioned dramatically in many ways. You're still doing very much the same work you've been doing for a number of years, although it's not what you did in your earlier years. In your earlier years, you were doing work you hated entirely. It was a completely different kind of work.
Right.
But your career is the entire path in the way I look at it. Most people think of the career as, well, I'm going to have a career as a psychotherapist who does law of attraction, which is what you do. But that's not your career. Your career is the work you do in your life as a whole. That's your career. That's the way I look at it. And when you look at the career, then the only way to look at a career, like you're saying, is that it's a journey. And it's a journey that has a lot of twists and turns in it. But it's a journey. And the more twists and turns it has, the more adventure you're having. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. And that relates directly to the topic. When our audience is going through challenges or we're dealing with, various things, it's easy to keep saying, boy, if this would happen, I would be happy. Or if this wouldn't, be this situation, I would be happy. Well, the truth is, the being happy has nothing to do with other situations. Saying you're either happy or you're not happy. And that's going to be where you're at. And the harbor, while again is your comfort zone, is a needed place. But so many people mistake the journey as a way to get to the comfort zone. I look at it as the comfort zone is a place to sort of relax for a few minutes while you're on your way to the journey. It's more of a rest area for me now. If I look at it, I'm going to cross interstate. I know there's a couple of rest areas between here and where I'm going. And while I don't want to live in that rest area, it's nice to stop and stand up and walk around.
Absolutely.
And that's sort of how I look at harbors. I don't like to have one harbor. I just trust in the fact that there's going to be harbors along the way, but I don't like to stay in those. When I'm going somewhere, I'd love to get where I'm going. Because of and have the experience along the way. I love that. I don't want to get stuck in, well, this is only where you're safer here. And again, you weren't given this incredible ability to overcome and deal with things to not have life. Life is going to happen. And when you spend your life avoiding those things in life, you're going to miss out on the stuff that was intended. We all are going to have pain happen. We're all going to have disappointment and frustration happen. We're going to have victories happen. Sometimes you can never see the victories without the frustrations. you can never appreciate the wealth without the poverty. The idea that money is not a factor in worry in my life anymore. It's not I've proven that enough that I don't have to fear not having money. I have enough money now that the other day I was contemplating, and I went ahead and did it because it was so reasonable, even at my age, to get a 10-year life term policy, life insurance policy, just because of Justin's age, and
Sure.
I wanted to make sure everything was taken care of.
Right.
But I don't really need it. I mean, he's probably taken care of anyway, but this will, put it over the top if something happens. I'm not anticipating anything happen. It's just a little safety net.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nice place to be in.
Yeah.
And it's just this, and it's to make sure that there's no longer going to be this thing that I worry about. That end of my life, there's no worry. I'm in great health. There's no worry there. I have a job and career I love. There's no worry there. I have to scan the horizons for things to worry about, and
which you don't normally do anyway.
Which I don't do, but I know people that do, and then they want to retreat back to their place of safety. Well, I don't want to take that chance. I might fail. I hear that a lot.
Mm.
Yes, I hope you do. I hope you do fail because it's going to be worth it. It's part of that. It wouldn't mean anything if you didn't. You have to go out there and try it. You have to go out there and push yourself. Those are exciting things. And I love it, but that becomes that piece of this big picture of the journey that we want to travel, this road we want to walk. That harbor is a great place to visit, but you don't want to live there.
I agree with you. As you were talking, one of the thoughts that was coming through my mind was thoughts about various posts that I've seen recently on Facebook, in particular in this one Law of Attraction group that I'm a member of, that is growing quite quickly, I might say, too. A very common kind of post there is one where somebody posts that something bad happened, and inevitably there are a whole bunch of commenters who say, well, life just happens, it's not your fault, you didn't attract it. And it always rubs me a little bit the wrong way because I know, well, actually, the law of attraction tells us we attract everything into our lives. So everything that comes into our lives, we attracted. Now, I also recognize it's probably not a good idea to be focusing primarily on that when something's going wrong. What you really need to do is to focus on what is going to get you out of there and what the solutions are. And you're not going to get there by saying, oh, my God, I attracted this into my life. Oh, no. Going down that road is not going to get you there. You have to change the focus. But nevertheless, I think it's also important to recognize that, we attract stuff into our lives. Okay, great. Now I can put that aside. We attract stuff into our lives. Now that I know that I've attracted stuff into my life and some of it was bad, what am I going to do about it? Okay, I don't have to live in the fact that I attracted this into my life. I don't have to wring my hands and shake my head. Oh, God, I keep attracting all this stuff into my life. I don't have to go down that road. I can actually go down a different road. I can go down a road that says, you know what? This is the beginning of a new increase. This is the beginning of a big improvement because in order to rise high, you have to start from a low place. Well, I'm in a low place right now. I can only go up from here.
Well, and part of being a practitioner of the law of attraction, you have to accept that everybody's on their own journey and their own mission. And I have often printed comment or almost posted comments similar to what you're talking about when people are going through things and deleted them or erased them before I posted them. It's not my job to make other people see if you want to know what works in my life, I'll be glad to tell you. But when you see people post these things and, my reaction is the same thing. Well, I didn't attract this, or it's not your fault, or, it's like, well, yeah, it is. But it's not productive in their world. They haven't gotten to that place yet. There was a time when I wasn't there. Mm. And so it's hard often to allow people to accept the only way you can get there is your journey. Like we have our audience listening today, and there'd have to be some interest in the law of attraction for them to be listening. But I promise you, there's people right now that are the skeptical crew that are still looking at it like, Yeah. I don't know if I really attracted that into my life. Well, it isn't. We talk about that term blame all the time.
Oh,
Our society is so worried about blame,
oh, it's crazy.
and it's it is it or the victimhood of it all, and it's so much better. And religion also sort of lends itself. Well, it's not your fault. The question, and I don't want to go down this path, so I'm not going to do it. But just a second, um, it's like I pray that the thunderstorm and hurricane doesn't take out my house. Well, it skipped your town and took out 20 houses over there. Well, thank God, God protected me.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so what did that say to the other side? That's not what it's about. It's not about the blame. Things happen. Things take place. Life is going to happen. And some of the stuff we attract, some of the things that we may be in the way of other people attracting things. But at the end of the day, it's your response to all of this that happens. I've shared a story on multiple occasions about two clients that I've worked with that had this ironic connection. Both clients, not related to each other, didn't know each other, totally separate reactions to the exact same scenario. They both had homes that burned down. And they weren't in the home, and neither one of them lost any pet or anything or a loved one. But they both lost everything they had.
Hmm.
Same scenario.
Yeah.
One of them viewed it as the most traumatic event of his life to come home where he lost absolutely everything. It was devastating. He may still be in therapy from that. I don't know. That's been 5 years ago. I won't work with him any longer. However, the other guy that I was working with at the time happened to mention midway through the session, yeah, my house burned down last week.
Just mentioned it.
Well, yeah, I would think that would be higher up the list. He goes, no, it's no problem. He said, in reality, I get all new stuff. I'm actually making money. I was going to sell my house anyway. Now I don't have to pay a realtor's fee. I'm coming out, I figure about $75,000 above everything. Things are great. My kids are happy. They're getting all brand new stuff. It really is sort of what we were hoping for. Not the house burned down. It is inconvenient, but nobody was hurt. The dog happened to be being groomed when the house caught on fire, so we didn't even lose our dog. And in his view, it was not a traumatic event. The same thing happened to the other guy, but it was a loss of everything. And that's the perspective that we bring to the table. The law of attraction teaches us the response to things are going to give you that similar response. It is what you're feeling, the emotion that's attached to it. It's so easy to get stuck. We as a society have been taught to view it as a negative. Well, I'm so sorry this happened to you, or I'm so sorry. And I'm not trying to belittle what people are going through, but the over traumatization of people to events, it's almost conditioned to. Remember the lady I was talking to you about that was being interviewed on the radio, on TV after her house burned down?
Right.
This wasn't a client, but the reporter was like, well, how does it feel to lose everything? And she goes, well, we're insured and we're staying at our sister's tonight. And we're going to be getting another house. Don't worry. Insurance company's already given us a $10,000 check. They're on top of it. We're in good shape, but grateful nobody was hurt. And the reporter kept saying, but how does it feel to lose your pictures and all the stuff, the memorabilia? And she said, well, everything's backed up on the computer. We can get all, nowadays you get all new pictures and there's really nothing that we can't replace. And the reporter asked another leading question. And finally the lady said, are you trying to get me to cry? I know that helps your ratings when you can say, but she said, this isn't a bad thing. I'm sorry we lost our house and it is inconvenient, but nobody was hurt here. Why do you need to ask and this is on live TV. Why do you need to ask, I know it makes for a better lead up when you can show the crying victim mom that lost her house. My children survived. They weren't home. Lightning hit our house. It caught fire. It burned to the ground. That's it. But the reporter was so desperate for a distraught crying woman because she unintentionally knew that lead into the show, a Richmond woman loses her home, or the kids are without a place to live tonight. Film at 6.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah.
It's not the narrative the lady brings to the table, because it's just life is going to happen. We are incredibly strong human beings that were given this journey to live, and some people believe we could choose this journey. We even chose this journey that we're on. That's another day topic. But regardless, we are given the ability to deal with so much, but yet we are conditioned to believe we're not capable of dealing with anything. Life's going to happen, and we can respond to it however we choose to respond to it. You can respond to it from that position of a victim and then continue to be a victim. If that's how you want to live. You can respond to it with strengths and continue to be strong and attract more positives in your life. Those are the successful people. Get up and they deal with stuff and they move on. It isn't that they don't have problems. It's that they deal with it and they don't get stuck on the negative side of it. And to me, that's the point of why we were put on this planet.
I think you have a lot in favor of what you're saying. I really do. In fact, it reminds me of one of my own stories. Back in the late 1990s when Louise and I first met, and we were just starting to date and starting to consider the idea of getting married. And in fact, we did get married. This was 1998. We did get married the following year, 1999. That summer, we had met in May for the first time. We dated a few times, and we started to get really close in June. And then by July, conversations were starting to happen. Well, around that time, we lived in Connecticut, and we journeyed to Rhode Island, where much of her family is located, not only to visit them, but also to take advantage of the beaches, because there are some great beaches in Rhode Island. So we went to the beach, and I had just bought a new car. It was a used car. It was like a 2-year-old car, but for me, it was a new car. It was a black Toyota Camry with little pinstripes on it. I mean, it looked really sleek and elegant. I loved it. But anyway, we were driving in that car and got to the beach and had a great time. And then on the way back, she says, well, I know the route better, obviously, to my own parents' house. Would it be okay if I drive? This is the first time she'd ever drive my car. So I was a little bit hesitant. I said, well, okay, just don't get into an accident, right? And a little tongue-in-cheek thing, right? 15 minutes later, we're sitting on the side of the road because we'd gotten into an accident. Thinking, oh God, you got to be kidding me. And I'm devastated because it's a brand new car and I can see the car is totaled. And we're both relatively unharmed. We had minor injuries, but nothing life-threatening by any stretch of the imagination. And of course, the first thought going through my mind is, how on earth am I going to afford to pay for this? I just bought a car. I don't have money to spend on another car. Never occurring to me that the accident wasn't even her fault. It was the other driver that caused the accident, and that their insurance was going to pay for it. It didn't even occur to me. All I was thinking is, oh my God, how am I going to pay for all this? Well, long story short, we got through it. Ended up talking to the insurance agent, or the insurance rep, I should say, for the other driver's insurance company. And again, long story short, because there's a whole story that's involved in that, we ended up walking away with something like an extra $12,000, which went to buying an engagement ring and paying for a wedding. Now, did I want to pay for a wedding that way? Absolutely not. I will never, hopefully ever, have to go through something like that in order to pay for something. But there was a major benefit that came out of this really bad situation, and that was our wedding got paid for. And you know what? One of the questions I had in my mind leading up to that point was, well, if we do get married, how the heck are we going to pay for it? Well, guess what? It got paid for. So even when you are in the middle of something that seems really terrible, you never know what's going to come out of it that could be even more amazing than what you possibly thought could happen.
Well, and that becomes the narrative for life. That's a perfect story of what happens in life. Things happen, and your response to it makes the difference. When you realize, I got all this paid for. Now, you didn't set out to have the right to get it paid for. It's just, you can look at it from that perspective. But, when people lose a job, it's traumatic. Well, it gets them a better job, often puts them in a better place, in a place that they're happier. I have a former colleague that is working at this treatment center that she has been very unhappy at for a long time, and she makes really good money there, and she's a doctor, and she keeps saying, I'm gonna I hate this place. And finally I said, look, I'm sorry you don't like your job, but you obviously don't like it enough to leave or dislike it enough to leave. So you're willing to put up with it. So either accept it or change it, but quit complaining about it. And so I didn't know she wasn't speaking to me for about a week. And she said, well, she had to tell me she wasn't speaking to me. She said, well, I guess you realize I haven't spoke to you in a week. And I was like, no, actually, until you told me, I just realized you haven't, So, which probably should have made her mad too, but she laughed. She said, well, that figures you wouldn't realize that. But she said, I gave my notice.
Oh.
And I said, well, good for you. She said, I'm scared to death. And I said, of what? I said, you're a licensed medical doctor with incredible experience. What in the world are you scared of? And well, I just, I'm worried about this or that. So about 3 days later, she said, I have 7 offers on the table. Can we sit down and figure out which one we want? And she said, none of them are, all of them are substantially higher than what I was making before.
Wow.
And she said, I know. And she said, you're right. She said, I'm mad at myself for not taking action before. She said, I when word got out, I resigned. She said, I had people calling me. The phone was ringing. She said, are you leaving? And they're saying, talk to me first before you sign with anybody. And so it's the point that we live in the self-imposed belief system of negativity. We often do. And the law of attraction tells us that that's going to bring more. And so when you get stuck in your harbor, I picture this harbor. It's really pretty. And everybody said, well, the harbor's where you want to be because it's the safest. Yeah. And it's also the least productive. It's the one where you're not thriving. Being out on the open water. And yes, the open water is going to have some big storms. And it's the big storms that make you grow. It's the struggle. The old saying that strong winds make deep roots on trees. One of the things that I was amazed at down at the island that Anna Maria Island, where the bench is located, that I talk about often,
right, is
I was there when they had this really severe tropical storm. And for seasoned veterans in Florida who you spend a lot of time in Florida, you don't leave. You don't even start talking about leaving until it gets to category 3 or 4. Category 1 and 2 are just basically afternoon thunderstorms. So this tropical storm just turned into a category 1 hurricane, and of course I was sitting out there just watching it roll ashore. And there's a palm tree that is this big palm tree. It's on the side of it's right on the Gulf of Mexico. And this storm comes over, and I had no idea. This palm tree, it bent, and it went back and forth violently. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing's about to come up. It sat through the whole storm, and it never budged. It moved a lot, but its roots never budged. And I realized it is because of what it's been through that it's so strong.
Right.
It survived it. It blew some of the leaves or the palm fronds off. It blew them off, and it looked like it got shaved bald, but it regrew. It came back prettier, bigger, tougher, and stronger. The storm is why that tree looks like that tree looks. We are who we are because of our storms, not because of the harbor. The harbor is the existing, the storms are the growth. And when you change your perspective of that, life then becomes what's next? What can we take next? And no matter what comes along, it has this. And I had an interesting, and very seldom do it, and I don't think I talked about this last week, but it shocked me. And I'm trying to think of what happened. It was one of these things where I might not have been in an awake state. It might have been right before bed, and some worry popped into my mind or something. And I do well in my very conscious state of not allowing that to happen, but it was subconscious. And I can remember this old narrative that I used to have, and it popped back in my mind. And I remember going, oh my God, I'm not strong enough to handle that. I laughed and go, "Are you kidding me? Where did that come from?" I have complete evidence to the opposite side
Yeah.
of that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I want our audience to understand. If you're listening to this show, you're instinctively knowing that you're stronger than what has happened to you. In fact, if you allow yourself to continue to be strengthened, no matter what you're going through, you become stronger. Use that as a challenge and live that way. And everything that happens is going to move you forward if you allow it to be the case. Or everything that can happen can make you further into the abyss and you can become more of a victim of it. And the only thing that changes, the only thing that's in control of that is your perspective, not some random event or another person. It's your perspective. And that is the most empowering or defeating knowledge in the world, because it just depends on which way you go with it.
Yeah, very true. As you're talking there and reiterating these very, very simple but life-altering concepts for those of us who take them to heart and make them a part of our lives by actually living life. I was doing a little searching online while you were talking to see what other people have said about this very same concept, the concept of the ship staying in the harbor or going out to sea. And I found a really interesting one by the French author André Gide. He said, "You can never cross the ocean unless you have the courage to lose sight of the shore."
Yes. Yes. Isn't that nice?
That is nice. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And that nothing would happen in life. The concept of, I'm just looking at things that are, I could talk for hours about how I love the time that we're alive, all this information. I remember a long time ago, it's not so long ago in the big scheme of my life now, but the first time I ever heard about the search engine Google, somebody said, "Well, yeah, there's a new search engine Google." And I'm like, "Well, that's stupid. Why do they need a new search engine?" And I remember early Yahoo having a chance to buy Google for something like $10 million. And Yahoo turned them down and said, "No, it's just another search engine." And I can, and it's like, oh, okay, I sort of get what they were talking about. The idea that somebody saw something within, first of all, the concept of you go even further back with the concept of the internet. Bill Gates had an idea. All this was created through a person with a vision, and most of them were told your vision makes no sense. You don't need another search engine. You have Yahoo and Web Crawler, if I remember.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there were a number of them. Yeah,
Internet Explorer. And you have
Alta Vista and Excite and Lycos and all those guys.
Yeah. And Google comes along and says, no, basically, hold my beer, watch this happen, and they take over everything in a great way. It's one of my favorite companies. They just are so innovative. And then you have Amazon come along, and everybody's like, the guy selling books online, what's that going to do one day? Well, Walmart's looking at them going, they're our only threat is Amazon.
Yeah,
Amazon's this massive company.
And it's a big threat.
They're huge. They do amazing things.
Yeah.
And so I look at it from a way, here's an example of the good and the bad in the harbor and just sort of how you tend to view things. Yesterday, I saw that Toys R Us are closing all of their stores.
Oh, are they? Wow.
Yep. In the United, and the only reason I know that is I have a friend that sent me. He's been manager for Toys R Us for years. He said I've known it for a while. We're closing all the stores here in England, and we're going to figure out what to do with our name and our online presence and all that. But we're not done with the toy business, but there's no need for physical stores anymore, considering the only time people really buy toys on a intense basis is during the holidays.
Right.
And so he said, he gave me a great compliment. He said, my initial reaction was to say, okay, I've been 25 years with this company. What am I going to do? And then he realized, he said, I have 25 years experience. He said, I know this is going to lead to something. I have plenty of money saved up. I have, and he started telling me all the positives about what his experience has done.
Good for him.
And he's looking at it from a way of, he said, there is sadness that a company that I worked hard a bit, but he said, it is progress. He said, in reality, I have to be prepared to understand what my job was. What was the point? He knows the toy business and entertainment, that kind of stuff better than anybody I know. And so he said, his goal now is he's part of the transition team that does that, but he's also getting his resume out there with, his experience of what he's been through, and somebody is going to need his knowledge. So he's changed it into a positive. There are people that are losing their jobs. That's a sad thing. Mm-hmm. But there's new jobs out there that are being created.
Sure.
There's new opportunities. It isn't that kids will stop having toys.
Nope.
It's the toy business has changed.
Right.
And that's just understanding how you get to do this. And, you get to live a life where these are the things that you don't have to get stuck in anymore. The defeat of life is not a defeat if you refuse to accept it as defeat. It's just you getting out of your harbor. And he, in a sense, realized his ship is now back on the open water, and he's going to be fine.
Carrying on the theme of the ship in the harbor versus the ship out in the open sea, he is obviously facing uncharted waters. He hasn't been on those waters before. And, of course, as these things usually work out, while you're telling that story, I'm finding a quote by Christopher Columbus taken from his diary, 3rd of August, 1492. He says, I should not proceed by land to the east, as is customary, but by a westerly route, in which direction we have hitherto no certain evidence that anyone has gone.
Yeah.
In other words, going in a direction that all of the sane people of the world say, don't go there. We don't know what's over there. You could get hurt over there. All kinds of terrible things could go on over there. But he recognized that the only way he was going to do anything to really get something great was to go where no one else had gone before. So when we lose our job, we're going where no one else is going. We're going into uncharted waters. But it's the uncharted waters that lead us to the best destinations.
Well, and that's, I envision that we have all different types of people listening in all different places in life. But right now there's somebody listening that they may be struggling with some of this. They may be uncertain where their future is. They may be stuck in some negative thinking processes. So I'm not minimalizing what it's like to go through and have to face all this stuff. It's so easy for me to say it sitting where I'm sitting, being through what I've been through. I'm just sharing the experience that when you get to a place where I know life doesn't I still have challenges in life. There's things that come along, but the difference now is I know how to handle them.
Mm.
I'm there. I'm able to handle it. There's no fear of what is there. Whatever is going to show up or what chaos tries to come into my life isn't relevant any longer. It's not. And this is the piece that you get strong within this and you start to feel, wait a minute, I get it. I need to not allow this negative history or this concept of somehow I'm living in a curse. And I literally met a lady this week that first thing she said is, I've been cursed.
Mm.
And I said, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm trying to, I don't know what to really say to that. And she went on, literally saying the word, I think somebody has a curse on me. I really believe that because everything I do is wrong. Everything that happens is wrong. And I just can't get on this whole, I have a curse. And I said, after about 45 minutes of that, I said, you're right. You are horribly cursed. Mm. It is one of the worst curses I've ever seen. And she said, really? So you can recognize it? I said, absolutely. And and she said, well, do you know anybody? I mean, she's thinking a different term than I am.
Right.
She said, you know anybody that can help me with this? And I said, I do. I said, I said that this person is equipped to handle it, and I built her up really way beyond what you can imagine. This person has all the talent, all the skills, and has the power to instantaneously remove your vision or belief that you have a curse and it can happen. And she said, "Can I have the name?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, and I gave her name.
Mm.
And I said, the curse is you believe you're cursed. And we spent, quite a bit of time looking at that, processing that. And she said, "Well, no." She kept objecting or telling me why that wasn't accurate.
Right.
And I said, "You came to me with a problem. I'm giving you an answer. I can only answer it so many different ways." I said, "Why don't you try it differently? Why don't you immediately remove your curse? Why don't you look at the greatness in your life?" I saw, I said, it's hard for me to put together, but I actually arrived off at the same time she did. So I said, "You pulled up in a 1-year-old Mercedes at most. And I'm finding it hard to view the fact that you view your life as cursed as you're driving basically a brand new Mercedes. It just doesn't match." And so we went through a process of all she had going for her, and versus all of this other stuff. And I said, the stuff that you're talking about, and she had a list of things and that were wrong. And I said, "Okay, so we're going to go through all of these things." And I said, "Give me 10 things that are wrong." Let's start with 10 things. There are, of the 10 things she told me, there were 9 things that were totally out of her control. It had nothing to do with her. Mm-hmm. I said, "So we're starting with those 9 things and we're going to file those away. They have nothing to do with you. That requires another person to take action. You can't make that person behave like you want. The one thing that you're in control of," and she has her perception was she had a weight issue. I said, "Right now we're gonna start walking today. You're gonna start exercising. You're going." She said, "Well, what kind of diet are you going to give me?" I said, "No. You're just going to start with these 2 things: replace soda with water and start walking every day. And we'll progress as we go. Quit thinking of yourself as fat. But we'll work on all those things." And she calls me 3 days into this, and she said, "I'm a different person." She said, I'm doing what she said. The negative thoughts keep coming back. I keep reverting back. I keep worrying about the things that are out of my control, that I stop and say, they're not in my control. Let me focus on what is with me." And she said, I've lost like 3 pounds in a few days. I feel great.
That's great.
And she lifted her curse. And whatever our listeners are going through, whatever anybody that hears this is going through, you're in charge of your own curse. Lift it, change it. Your happiness is yours and yours alone to control. Happiness is instantaneous when you choose to become happy. We live in an amazing time. I'm sorry that things happen to people. At the same time, I'm glad they do, because when they get on the other side of it, it's part of the journey. This is an amazing life we've been given. I'm grateful to live it. I'm grateful to get up every morning. And once you start doing that, amazing things start happening in your life.
They really do. They do in a big way. Well, thank you for sharing your post and your perspective, because your perspective, as usual, is enlightening and invigorating and exciting, because it points us in the direction of where life's adventure is. And everybody needs to be on life's adventure and not sitting on the sidelines. It's so much more fun when you're in the field. So thanks for inviting us out into the field. It is, my friend. By the way, for somebody who's looking for that more personal attention, like that woman who needed your personal attention, how do they reach out to you?
JoelElston at gmail.com is my email address, and JoelElston.com is my web address. There's contact information on that. I do phone sessions, I do individual sessions, and do public speaking. So I'm available for a lot of things. If you need any of that, just reach out. But more than anything, keep listening to LOA Today, and we can suggest you subscribe on iTunes, and you certainly can do that and not miss any of our episodes.
Absolutely. In fact, the whole thing about how to subscribe and share is right on the homepage at loatoday.net. Joel Elston, thanks so much for joining today. I love it, as usual, and look forward to doing it again with you next week.
Well, great to talk to you, my friend.
All right. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.